Hello. This is week 80 in Intuitive Momentum Fitness, and happy to be here with you. Today it's kind of my first down day in a while, and I am worn out. So today I was intentionally lazy and slowed down this morning, and then just couldn't get going because I feel like I probably need a couple of days like this. But I am excited to be here with you guys and share a little bit about my journey so far. So I recently had a photo shoot done with my buddy Sean, and he's a great photographer, and I was able to capture some of my most recent fitness conditioning, and some of that came with just kind of a recent fat loss that I experienced, and some of that was working with my nutrition response tester. There's a certification for this nutrition response testing, and a previous woman who is certified in nutrition response testing was the one who helped me the most in my journey, as far as any professionals that helped me along the way. And so I'm working with a woman from Colorado who is a friend of mine. Hey Kristen, good to see you on here. And so she's been supporting my body for energy and sleep and all of that. So basically she's able to do some energetic testing and figure out what nutrients my body may need more of or less of, or what kind of support it needs, whether it's like a cleanse or something like that. So I've been doing that, and then along with being extremely consistent with what seems to be the most beneficial nutrition routine for me. And I got sick early June, lost some weight, but I didn't think about the fact that I was already on this protocol, and I was continuing to eat consistently. And then after I got better, I was still losing weight for another month. And I was like, oh no, my hard-earned muscle is going away, but I didn't seem to be losing any strength, and I was getting ripped. So scheduled a photo shoot with Sean, and then so I've been sharing some of those photos, and recently shared, hey Adam, glad you're here. I shared those photos on Facebook, and then a few days ago updated my profile picture with one of those photos and these words. And I want to comment on these words today and kind of give more of the background, but this is what I shared. I will be disciplined. I will be consistent. I will be obsessed. I will be extreme, because nothing will be as extreme as a childhood of illness, weakness, and constant fatigue. Nothing will taste better than the strength and energy to live life fully alive. I choose strength. I choose energy. I choose vitality. I've been consistently questioning, researching, and experimenting for 2 decades. I will continue until I become the fittest, strongest, most energetic old man I can possibly be. This is my passion. I will live life fully alive because there is so much of life to live. So it's kind of interesting to me to step back and think about what those words mean to me and what those words could mean to someone else. So I have been called extreme and obsessed often throughout the last 20 years. And it's interesting to see what different people's experiences allow them to perceive. And I'm not saying that I'm right and everyone else is wrong, because everyone is right in their own situation, for their own from their own position. And so this is part of what is so important in this group, is that we all come from different places. We are all we all have different experiences. We're all overcoming different things, and yeah, hopefully the principle, the foundation of what we're learning together is what is understood and what is valuable. Hey Menabit, good to see you. So I came from a situation that forced me to be disciplined in a lot of different ways. First, my dad was extremely controlling and abusive, and I did try to get his approval for nearly 22 years. So that led to some extreme discipline on my part. Not necessarily healthy, but it became ingrained in me, because the first 22 years of my existence was all about being obsessed with meeting all these really unreachable standards that he had for me. And I wasn't able to see all that till after. So yes, so there was some unhealthy aspects of obsession, some unhealthy aspects of being extreme. But then I had all these health issues as a result of all the stress I was experiencing and the complex PTSD that I didn't know about for a long time. And so in order to experience any amount of health, I have had to be extremely disciplined, extremely obsessed, extremely extreme. And so along the way, other people see that and just think, wow, you are way over the top. Like, even when I was suffering the most, what I was experiencing wasn't necessarily visible to others. And that's really challenging about a lot of autoimmune issues, is that other people don't necessarily see that. They don't, they can't tell that you're experiencing extreme fatigue, that you have hard time thinking. They just think that you're lazy or just don't want it enough, or aren't working hard enough, or aren't committed enough, or whatever. And so it's kind of an invisible illness. And even a lot of times, like, the blood work won't show what's going on in certain situations. And it still kind of confuses me as to why blood work is the standard protocol to check what's going on, because the body makes a priority of making sure the blood is as balanced as it can be. The blood is the life in the body. And so your body is going to be working overtime, sacrificing other places to make sure the blood is as balanced as it can be and is as optimal as it can be. So then why we use that in our medical testing to, see if someone is off, like, that's kind of a last stage emergency point if it's showing up there. So why are we checking that first? Like that should be one of the last places checked, because it's going to show up other places first. So when you're experiencing something that no one else can validate, that you start feeling pretty insane after a while. And so for me, being as extreme as I have been, being as obsessed and disciplined and consistent as I have been, just to show up in a way that looks normal to everyone else, is very challenging, very lonely. And so that when people just say, hey, you're kind of obsessed with that, you're being extreme with that, that doesn't seem healthy for you to be as extreme as you are, that's really defeating. And for someone who spent my life trying to get someone's approval who was never going to approve of me, and being hyper in tune with his attitude toward me, I can be overly sensitive to what other people have to say about me and their opinions about me, because I was adjusting my entire existence based on someone else's views of me and opinions of me, and that's not healthy. and I'm working on being resilient within myself, being in tune with myself, and not weighing in with other people's opinions and thoughts and perspectives, or letting that get to me too much. But still, it has been challenging over the years, as I've been in the growing process and the healing process, it's been challenging to separate myself from the opinions of other people, and to not question myself when someone thinks that I'm being too extreme. And even my goals, like the goals that I have had for fitness, like for a long time, for most of my life, I was underweight. And anytime I tried to work out and get stronger, I got weaker and smaller. So getting heavier, to me, was the definition of getting healthier. And then when I was able to build some muscle, and I still wasn't as strong and powerful as I wanted to be, but then I was also gaining some body fat for the first time in my life. And I was like, well, I don't want that. And then, but I just like, I'll just tolerate that until I can work that off or whatever. And so then at the heaviest I've ever been was, it'd be 75 pounds more than the heaviest I could weigh, up to 22. So that's a lot of extra weight. And so after that point, I decided to start focusing on losing body fat. And then I was struggling with that. And I was like, so how does that work? Like, I couldn't gain weight for the longest time, and now I can't lose body fat. And I was struggling with it for years. So, and in hindsight, I needed to dial in my nutrition a little bit more. I was being very consistent with my exercise, so that wasn't as much of an issue. but the nutrition has been very, very tricky for me and has taken a lot of experimenting. But over the years, when I would lament about not being as lean as I wanted to be, people would kind of shame me for wanting to be leaner than I was. But I knew my body and I knew what I wanted. And so I feel like it's so important, whether, however people see your goals, they have to be your goals. Like, you have to be true and authentic to what you desire for yourself. So you're not too extreme for the desires that you have. So Sudha says, but also that sensitivity is not surprising for someone given a history that involves trauma and a form of PTSD. Yep, absolutely. So my survival for 22 years was dependent on the approval, or at least the tolerance, of the most powerful person in my life all those years. And so there was definitely a pattern of hypervigilance developed, of being overly in tune with what everyone else thought about me in particular, because that was where my safety was. So it's quite understandable, and I get to practice compassion on that, and I do have compassion on that. So I do remind myself not to be hard on myself when I feel overwhelmed by someone's opinions. So then, I make this post on Facebook, and I've gotten, mostly positive responses to it. But I realize also from my observations of others that this could sound unhealthy. So my statements, I will be disciplined, I will be consistent, I will be obsessed, I will be extreme. I see other people in health and fitness circles saying that they refuse to be obsessed, and they refuse to be extreme because life is all about balance, and I do believe that. But balance looks different for everyone, and so for one person, it would be extreme and unbalanced and unhealthy for them to be as obsessed and disciplined as I have been and that I want to be. And for me, it would be unbalanced and unhealthy for me to be less extreme, if that makes sense. Because when I stray from the few foods that my body is okay with, then life is not balanced. Life is not healthy. I am not healthy. So it's kind of amazing how that can be different for all of us. So in order to kind of bring clarity to these statements, I want to explain, I want to share some of the behind the scenes of the things that I have learned over the years through my journey, and kind of like the big picture principles that everyone can apply, and then some of the specific things that I have found works best for me, and what what others may be able to draw from that if they wanted to add to the data bank of what seems to work for people. So over the years, I've been in massage therapy for 16 years. I've been in fitness for 16 years. And it's not just the education and my own personal research, because I've actually been researching fitness. It's either 21 or 22 years now, because I started a little bit before I went into the Marines. I started collecting books on fitness and studying up on it, and nothing worked like I've talked about before until I started adapting it through my own intuition. But I was reading these books and beginning to learn about what it takes to build muscle and principles of strength training and all of that. So when I lost my train of thought. So Susie says, yeah, it depends on what you mean by extreme, says me, who tends to overdo on activities and end up in PT a lot. Yeah. So I mean, extreme in my situation is like being super strict with my nutrition routine, which most people would, from the outside, would think would be unhealthy. But I know that I'm listening to my body and actually only giving it the foods that it feels good with and that it responds well to. So it would seem extreme to others. And for me, it's balance. And then Susie, you enjoy all kinds of physical activity, probably close to an extreme level. And then, as evidenced by being in PT a lot, and having to recover and take breaks and all that stuff. But you are living a life that you enjoy through that. So some of the things that I've learned along the way, I've got 6 listed out. We'll see if I add any more. But first, I learned from experts, but trusted my gut instincts. This started with reading those fitness books, strength training, bodybuilding, and understanding you need to work through the body at least a couple times a week, lift each muscle group to fatigue, rotate through the body throughout the week, give rest days, all those things. So I learned about the basics of strength training, bodybuilding, and those basics weren't working for me. I read multiple books, and I was doing what it said, and I was getting weaker and smaller. So my gut instinct was to spread everything out, because I was observing these patterns of fatigue where I was trying to work out consistently and getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And I thought, well, maybe I don't have enough energy for this. So I decided to spread everything out, make the muscle group smaller that I would be working. I picked smaller movements, smaller areas, split the body 14 ways, took 2 weeks to get through the entire body, one muscle group at a time. I still went to fatigue. I still wore it out. And then the next time I came to each muscle group, I found that I was not only not weaker, but I was able to do more. And that was the first time at 22, 23 that I experienced that kind of strength gain. And it was amazing. And so I learned from experts, but trusted my own gut instincts. Kristen says, so yeah, if extreme leads to healing, that's good because it can lead to balance. Yeah, absolutely. So then number 2, I sought out professionals, but conducted my own experiments. So over the years, I saw a couple different naturopaths, and actually three different ones, and they all told me, excuse me, they all told me I would be on thyroid medication for the rest of my life. That the thyroid is one of those organs that doesn't heal. And it's amazing to think about that now. But when I was 27, I met this lady that did nutrition response testing, like I was talking about earlier. And I was representing the YMCA at this little health fair at the middle school, and she was representing her nutrition response testing and then her husband's chiropractic at another table. And so we got to talking, and I decided to come and try her technique out. And I started seeing her every week. And in 2 months, my adrenals tested at 100%. And in 5 months, my thyroid tested at 100%. And so at 27 and a half, I experienced a normal amount of energy for the first time in my life. And that was amazing. That was really cool. So she was one of the professionals that helped me out the most. But along the way, I had gone to many professionals, including 3 different naturopaths. And I continued to test myself and experiment with fitness and with nutrition all along the way. So I didn't only trust the professionals. I did my own experiments, and I tracked my own progress with the different things. And some of those ended up being extreme as well. But I just wanted to try and practice as many things as I could. So in the area of fitness and strength training, I would experiment with different things. Like I've mentioned before, like there were periods of time, a few months, where I would only do pull-ups for back day, and I wouldn't do any other back exercise, any rows, anything else, because I wanted to get better at pull-ups. And I would get up to 24 pull-ups in a row, and I would be able to crank out like 220 pull-ups in a 50-minute workout. And other times, like other muscle groups, I was doing weighted walking lunges. I wanted to see how heavy I could get on walking lunges. So I was trying for 3 sets of 20 walking lunges. And every week or so, I would increase the weight of the dumbbells I was carrying. And I ended up being able to do 3 sets of 20 walking lunges with a 100-pound dumbbell in each hand. And that was crazy. That was super intense. It was scary every time I went to do that because it was so much weight. But I was able to do it. And of course, it takes a long time to get up to that. And then there was a lot of other leg exercises I wasn't doing because I was focusing just on that. So then I went back to doing all kinds of other ones. And the body is amazing. It's so specific. It adapts to exactly what you do and not to what you're not doing. And so it does take a while to work up to those different things, even if you are really strong and you do other things in different ways. So it's fun to experiment, but I relied on that. And then definitely with nutrition, I was testing things out myself. Some of it was guided by the professionals. Like there was a time where I got ulcers. It was super, super painful. It was a really stressful time. at my work at the YMCA, there was an instructor that I was supervising that didn't like some of the restrictions that another local expert was placing on an exercise class, like certain exercises that were considered dangerous for long-term use, and she didn't like that, and so then she turned everyone in her class against me as the supervisor that was trying to implement this safety measure. And so it was really freaked me out. I got stressed out. I got an ulcer, and I had the ulcer for 6 weeks. And so toward the end of those 6 weeks, it was like the stress was going down, but the ulcer was still there. It was extremely painful. It was hard to do anything. And I talked to the nutrition response tester, and she asked about what I was eating, and she said, cut out bread. I was like, hopefully this doesn't work, because I like bread. I stopped eating bread, and 2 days later, the ulcer was gone. And she did some further testing and confirmed that I'm very sensitive to grains. So that was a bummer. But since then, I'm really grateful, because now I don't really miss bread. I miss the idea of like making a simple lunch and a simple sandwich. But I would way rather have better health than the convenience or the taste factor of certain foods. So this second point is I sought out professionals, but I conducted my own experiments. So you are the world's expert on your body if you choose to pay attention. And there's no one else on the planet that's living in your body like you are, hopefully. So I've seen some movies. So but yeah, so hopefully like you have the opportunity to become the world's foremost expert on your body. And that's so important for you to be engaged in the process, not to just trust that someone else knows more about your health than you do. Yes, take some wisdom, learn from others, gather data. Nothing is insignificant. I've experienced in my journey of desperately looking for ways to experience a little more health, a little more strength, a little more energy. So learn from everyone, test it out, see what you find. And then number 3, when nothing seems to work, I didn't give up. And this is where I feel like a little bit like the definition of insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so my experience is just really close to that. I feel like if along my journey, I kept trying to experience health when health seemed unattainable. I kept trying to experience strength when strength was elusive. And so in a way, even though like I was making small adjustments along the way, it still felt like I was being insane because it clearly wasn't working. So many people told me that I would have my fatigue the rest of my life. Experts told me that I would have fatigue the rest of my life. And every adult I knew told me that their youth was their prime and that it was all downhill from there. So there was no one telling me that it might get better or it could get better. And like, I didn't know a single person who had experienced life getting better as they got older. And I just was insane enough to refuse to accept that that was the only reality for life, the only possibility for me to experience. And so I chose to be insane and keep trying things that didn't seem to be working. And so that definitely was the case with the fatigue challenges and the lack of strength over and over and over and over and over again. And then later on with the fat loss and people just saying, oh, you know what, you're getting into your late 30s, you're it's just harder to lose weight, that's just how it is. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna just accept that. Like, that's not gonna be the only reality I experience. I want to have a certain fitness ability. I want to have certain physique reality, and I'm not going to accept that that is not possible. I believe that the body was made to be powerful, healthy, vital, beautiful, attractive, and I'm not going to just settle for anything less than that. And so that for me is like an ultimate bucket list item where other people don't have that. And so like I'm not bothered or upset when other people don't prioritize the same things I prioritize. It's something that I want. It's a goal that I have, and I'm not trying to make everyone have that goal. But if someone does have that goal and it seems impossible, I want to share with them what has worked for me. So Kristen says, if someone else is living in my body, I bet they're mad I don't eat bread anymore. Yeah, that sucks. They're going to have to go somewhere else. I love that you proved them wrong about your health. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I am obsessed, and this is the life that I want, and I'm willing to do what it takes. I'm willing to be as consistent and as disciplined as it takes to live my dreams. So, and a lot of times things are out of our reach, and that's why. Like I've been on this journey for 2 decades and am just seeing some of those goals realized. Number 4 is I haven't conquered, but I'm accepting and adapting. I think there's this idea, especially when you're struggling with specific health issues, it's like I just want it to be over. I just want to be healthy. I want to be done with being sick. I want to be done with illness. I just want to live optimally. And I have come to the conclusion that that's never the case. It's always a work in progress. It's like a ship sailing through the ocean. You're always adjusting your heading. You're never just on course and then you can go about your business and know that you're going to get there. There's things knocking you off course constantly. And so adjusting back on course is a constant thing. So the first time that I realized that might be a pattern in life was the Marines for me. as far as being approved, feeling like a man, all of that. Because, basically I spent 22 years trying to get my dad's approval, and I felt like I wouldn't be a man, I wouldn't be approved, or I wouldn't be confirmed as valid and needed and wanted until he gave me that stamp saying, okay, you've finally become the man you're supposed to be. So in hindsight, one of the unconscious reasons that I joined the Marines was because I wanted that feeling of, young man, you've arrived, you conquered, you overcame, and now you are a Marine, and I confer this title on you. And my experience of the 13 weeks of hell, boot camp, was just constant fatigue, constantly wondering if I was going to get kicked out because I could barely keep up. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know yet that I had hypothyroid, hypoadrenia, and that I never should have been able to make it through. But I kept surviving, and I felt like I got all the way to graduation day and just survived. And that feeling of conquering and becoming a hero just was never there. And that stamp of approval felt like a very grudging, okay, you passed. You're a Marine now. Congratulations. And so it was such a different feeling from what I was envisioning ahead of time. So that was when it was really confirmed to me that there were some serious things wrong with my body. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't a willpower thing. It wasn't a discipline thing, like my dad had always said. It wasn't a lazy thing. There was something wrong with my body, and something wrong with my health, and even in the years beyond that, I kept thinking that once I get healthier and stronger, then I'll be able to prove everybody that I'm not lazy, and that I have value, and that I can work hard and be seen and respected and valued and all that. And then since then, having learned about my complex PTSD and how my nervous system itself wears out faster than most people just because of my hypervigilance, and even beyond complex PTSD, part of my makeup as a person, like I've had astrological readings done, and all of them talk about how I'm extremely intuitive, I'm extremely emotionally connected, I'm taking in so much data. One of the ladies that was just reading my chart didn't know anything about me, was saying, based on this, you need at least 2 hours a day in the closet with earplugs in and your eyes closed just to recover from the sensory overload that you're experiencing all the time. So just those characteristics by themselves make it appear to others that I don't have what it takes to keep up in the real world. That I still have fatigue issues, that I still have hard work issues, those kinds of things. And it's not necessarily about that, it's not necessarily about getting stronger and healthier so that I can, not need to rest anymore. It's just part of how I am made, how I'm wired to be in tune and kind of see the more etheric energetic picture of what's going on around me. So, so this point number 4, I haven't conquered, because in a sense, I haven't overcome any of the things I wanted to overcome in my life, but I'm accepting and adapting. So accepting and adapting allows me a couple times a week to spend 2 or 3 hours playing pickleball against some pretty intense competition that at a level that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do. But then I need to balance it with downtime and alone time and stillness time throughout the week. And so that is all about learning myself and learning balance. And I'm grateful for the strength that I've been able to build up over the years, because the strength has given me that permission, that ability, that leverage to be able to expend myself in ways that I couldn't have 20 years ago. So then point number 5 and 6 are more functional versus principle. But 5 is one of the biggest things I've learned in my journey as far as health and fitness is that strength training / muscle building is paramount. It's the foundation of endurance. It is, the muscle is the nutrient store of the body. It's the organ of longevity. There's no tissue in the body that stores more nutrients than the muscle. So building up the muscle is like foundational to having a strong immune system, to having resiliency through injury and illness, and longevity. Most of the symptoms of aging are actually symptoms of frailty, bone and muscle loss. And bone and muscle is lost together because they are built together. They work together. So every muscle in the body is attached to bone. Every time you use your muscle, you're tugging on the bone. And so strength training, bodybuilding builds bone and muscle density. And it's been the key to life for me. No aspect of my fitness has been more important than strength training. No aspect of my fitness has been more life-changing than strength training. And that is what I'm planning on laying as the foundation of my long and energetic older years. So, not only have I proven that, youth wasn't my prime and that it could get better, I intend to prove through example that the old years can be extremely powerful, extremely energetic, extremely strong. So yeah, the thing that I'm most grateful for in my fitness is strength training. It's allowed me to play sports for the first time in my life. I didn't get to when I was a kid. I wouldn't have been able to had I had the opportunity because of my fatigue. So it's allowed me to play sports, to experience sports. It's allowed me to do cardio, which cardio, if you have extreme fatigue, if you have autoimmune issues, cardio will drain your energy faster than anything else will. So there was a lot of years where I couldn't do cardio. But then strength training, because I focused on strength training, that allowed me the ability to begin doing cardio. And I still don't enjoy running in a straight line. I'd rather play pickleball for 3 or 4 hours, or volleyball for 2 hours, or soccer for an hour. But I'm able to do those things. So I'm so grateful for that. And then number 6, I've learned how to be in tune with my body to see how foods make me feel. And so we've talked about this a little bit, but like you can read, there's, nutrition is one of those areas that not only is it nerve-wracking because people are very attached to their food, and that's so fine. But there's a lot of what's the right word? There's a lack of integrity around a lot of the research that's been done, with funding only being available for certain things and certain results needing to be found within the research. And so then, like decades later, other scientists go back and review the research, and after it's in all the textbooks and the medical training and on the government websites, they're finding massive lack of integrity in how the research was conducted. So this has definitely turned my world upside down in multiple ways, because the things I'm finding are the most healthy were always the things that I was told wasn't healthy, and vice versa. And then I'm doing my own experimenting like I always do, and finding the revolutionary approach to be effective. So I'm going to talk from my experience, my perspective. So I found out when I was 17 that I was allergic to sugar, which totally made sense as I started to think about it at that time and started paying more attention to it. Anything that with sugar in it immediately brought all the symptoms of fatigue that I experienced generally, which was, muscle fatigue, weakness. It was hard to stay standing up. I wanted to lay down. I would get weak and dizzy. I would have a hard time focusing my eyes, have a hard time remembering what I was saying. I would get a headache. I'd get nausea. I would feel massive depression. My muscles were physically weak, like holding things was hard. Talking was hard. Articulating. And so it was just like an immediate intensifying of all those symptoms whenever I had sugar. The thing I didn't put together for many years was that carbs did the same thing. And just because it technically didn't have sugar in it didn't mean that it was the next closest thing to sugar. So it took me many, many more years to kind of figure that out and start experimenting with that. I did cut out fruit early, and that was helpful because fruit turns to sugar really fast. And then when I cut out most carbs, that was helpful. It started with the grains first, and then later on, it was all carbs, even like yams and potatoes, and then eventually vegetables. So, yeah, at the one end, you've got sugar. So, what would you have at the other end? If you have sugar at one end as an extreme thing, and then you've got maybe fruit and potatoes and yams and greens, and then what would you have at the other end? So basically protein and fat, but protein is more complex. So protein at the other end takes the longest for the body to break down and turn into glucose. It has to go through many different processes to turn it to glucose, but everything eventually turns into glucose. But your body has to work hard. So for some reason, and it may be that someday I get healthy enough where I can handle some carbs and some sugars. We'll see. But for now, it seems that when the process of converting foods to glucose has been done already, and then I eat something that turns to sugar really fast, my body doesn't do well with that. It needs to do all the work itself. And so protein and fat have to go through several processes to end up becoming glucose. According to Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, up to 60% of all the protein you eat when you're not eating carbs gets converted to carbs. So you're not depriving yourself of anything when you don't eat carbs, other than the taste factor. And so for me, for some reason, that's what my body needs to do. It does better when it goes through that whole process or multiple processes of converting protein and fat into glucose for use in all the systems in my body. So I recently did an experiment, and when I added just 55 grams of carbs, and if you've been tracking any kinds of foods, you know that's not a lot of carbs. So just 55 grams of carbs a day for 3 weeks increased my belly fat measurably, and then fruit, when I had it, I noticed it gave me bloating. So that was a recent experiment again, because I've been mostly carnivore for a year and a half. Experimenting again with adding a little bit of carbs back in just to see what would happen. And so belly fat and bloating. So I'm not doing that anymore. And I'm going back for now to just the protein and the fat, because that seems to be what my body appreciates the most. And I'm able to keep my strength. It's super nutrient dense. So that is definitely interesting. Not everyone's going to have the experience, but if you get anything from what I'm saying, I hope it is that you listen to your body. You notice when you get a little bit of a headache. You notice when you get a little bit of nausea, or your stomach gets tense, or gets crampy, or you get gas, or all those things. And if you think, oh, everyone gets those things all the time, then there's a lot of things probably going on with your nutrition that isn't appreciated by your body. And so keep experimenting. Don't give up on that. So then Andrea had a couple of questions for me. And first one was, what is your most memorable breakthrough moment or epiphany along your health journey so far? And I think it's the one that happened fairly early. I can't remember whether it was like before or after Marine prep, but I've talked about it before, but it was that moment when I had been consistent in workouts and like had happened every single time. It wasn't working. I was getting weaker. I was getting smaller. I wasn't getting stronger like I intended. And I was thinking, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. Maybe this will never work. Maybe I should quit. And then I had the thought, I know what will happen if I quit, but I don't know what will happen if I keep going. So I'm going to keep going just to see what might happen. And that was the biggest, everything else, every positive thing that has happened in my life came after that moment. And because of that moment. So that's probably the most memorable breakthrough moment that I've had. And then her second question was, if you were on a road trip, what would be your perfect combination of items to put in the cooler to remain consistent? So this is a great question. It's kind of tricky because if you're eating mostly animal-based protein, it's trickier because you have to do some kind of food prep. But I would probably have some cans of tuna fish. I would probably bring my plug-in skillet and then have some ground beef and some eggs and some simple stuff that I could fry up and put in little containers and then have throughout the day. That's very similar to what I make for breakfasts and lunches and every meal. But yeah, when I make multiple lunches in a row, then I usually fry up some ground beef, some ground turkey, sometimes some chicken, and prep that ahead of time. And so I'd probably do something similar to that. You know, if it's a road trip, there may be some moments where it might be easy to grab some like a meat and cheese tray or something and to snack on if I needed to do that without prep. But otherwise, that's probably what I would do. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of you would have some good answers for your own nutrition routine. So would love to hear those if you get a chance to comment. But yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit more of the background on my experience up to this point. Almost 20 years of consistency and radical positive change in my health and well-being and my mental emotional wellness. And hopefully that was helpful. And if you have any thoughts, questions, please reach out, post in the group, comment below. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Love you. Talk to you soon.